So that's a lot of what they were doing. He's, of course, carrying it to another level.
The helicopter came from France. The Army, the helicopters, the spent uranium that they tried to talk about and said they wanted to outlaw after the Gulf War. Uranium, I got that from the Swiss.
Are you referring to depleted uranium
uranium
shells? Yes.
I got that from the Swiss.
From the Swiss.
And then the South Americans had one of the best anti-aircraft units at the time. And then we got a 20 millimeter from the Germans. So we were taking foreign technology wherever it appeared in the world, and also the foreign technology also uncovered other worlds.
All right, that's
the book is Project Horizon, very important. We were going to put a military colony on the moon in the early 60s.
We were going to put a military... In other words, there were plans to do
Project
that.
Horizon.
Uh-huh.
There's 50 pages are in the book, but the project itself was 310 pages. In fact, I had a hand in declassifying it.
John, Dr. Alexander, John, have you looked into this aspect of the Colonel's story, that we had a whole plan to put a base on the moon?
Oh, that absolutely exists. He's given me a copy. And one of the things that's not very well known is that, you referred to the Germans before. Remember, that was Operation Paperclip, where at the end of the war we had selected a number of scientists, Werner von Braun and Oberst and others, and brought them in. And they were working for the Army. And so the Army had developed this plan, and then when NASA was formed, the plans went over to NASA. So basically the plans on, and they were very detailed, on how to get from here to there, and not just travel, but actually to establish bases and fight in space, was being thought about in the 50s.
All right, so this was sort of an ongoing, we've got to get there before they do kind of plan.
Well, we made a plan and wrote it up like it was aimed at the Russians. But if the plan is read in General Trudeau's instructions, they're in the book. The letters he gave of instruction, you see that we were aiming at any enemy from outer space also. And MacArthur knew about this.
So obviously at that point they had hard knowledge that there were others and that they were not necessarily friendly at all.
Yes, and what we said, just in case, was our motto.
Just in case. Yeah, just in case. All right, let me read you this fax I've got, Colonel, and let me ask you about it. We have yet to develop how you got to this technology, but here's somebody reading your book, Colonel, and he says, I'm only halfway through the Colonel's book, but I've reached a very disturbing chapter. The Colonel says that the military has been fighting a war with the aliens since 1947 and considers the aliens to be enemies of the United States. Would you please ask the Colonel if it's true and if indeed these aliens are our enemy?
Art, I had a list of overt acts on their part. Maybe accidental, maybe not planned, but they were overt acts. They killed our men, they brought down aircraft, and they even experimented on civilians. So we had to consider in the military that those were hostile acts. By design or not, they were hostile.
Colonel, can you give me any details? You say hostile acts, overt acts. They killed our men, you said, and experimented on civilians.
Von Braun even wrote of a missile that was thrown off track by them, by electromagnetism. And we were at Ramstein Air Force Base. They shot at them, and that's in the book also. And the Maelstrom Air Force Base, they flew over that and they knocked out all our guidance system on our Minutemen missiles. The guidance system on every one was knocked out. And then at Baikonur, the Cosmodrome in the Soviet Union,
yes, sir,
a UFO came over for 14 seconds, and all their steel towers fell apart. All the welds and the rivets came apart. The Cosmodrome was down for about 3 weeks. And the UFO only was over 14 seconds. And also we had information that they followed all our Gemini and all the Russian Voskhod, I think, shot in the air. So we had all that evidence.
Art,
Yes.
One thing I might add, and this is, I'll be the cautionary note here, is when Phil here talks about the military, and that's a pretty inclusive term, because I don't think that most, if you went to the military, that you would get consensus on this. So this is clearly speaking for some people within the military, as opposed to an institutional position.
Yeah, I think John's right there.
All right. Well, clearly the acts were or appeared to be overt, but from what you have told me, short of people who may have died, it seems hard to conclude that their action was that of an enemy that wanted to come at us or have a war with us, because surely they had the technology to wage a much larger scale war than...
Well, on that, we used to discuss, if they fight a war against us, are they going to fight on our level or their level? Now, that's a question we never quite answered. We didn't think that they were going to fight a war with guns and missiles like we do.
Uh-huh.
Remember, they were DNA experts. They made these clones of that superintelligence. And when I analyzed that clone, what a marvelous thing that was. We were remiss on that. We should have diagnosed that thing very minute. That was one of the greatest things they left us, and we were sort of remiss. We didn't do enough.
How much?
That was a marvelous thing.
How much actually did we do? I mean, you said you saw an autopsy report.
We studied the digestive system. There wasn't any.
None.
There was no vocal cords.
No vocal cords.
No ears. No sound. We figured that they had 4 lobes in the brain, and we figured that their communication was mental telepathy.
Would you call them biological entities?
We did. We made that name up. Extraterrestrial biological entities.
You made that name up?
We made that up in the Army. And we came to the conclusion that they were definitely clones made specifically for space travel, since man today cannot travel in space. Now, NASA might object to my book because I make that statement, that man cannot travel in space if these clones were made on that. Of course, somebody's going to come back and say, we spend billions and still man can travel in space. Well, it's a fact. There's nothing I can do about it. It's true. And on Mir, when they come off of Mir, they've been up for 3 months. I have to help them off. The bone marrow and the muscles are affected.
All of that is true.
And the brain is affected, too.
As a matter of fact, there are some very interesting developments with regard to Mir and other space flights in which the crews have begun to get out of control. And I think we are not hearing all about Mir right now. This crew is not in control. They've been basically told, stop what you're doing, just rest. We're going to get you out of there and get a new crew up there. So obviously, this crew is barely fit to be sitting where they're sitting inside Mir right now. So what you're saying does make sense. All right, both of you hold on. We're at a break point. It's interesting to contemplate, isn't it, that even we, when we finally achieve long space flight, may have to create the kind of creatures the Colonel says we dissected. And they may be the ones who may have to fly in space, because over a long period of time, we can. This is CBC.
Taking calls on the wildcard line at 702-727-1295. That's 702-727-1295. First-time callers can reach Art Bell at 702-727-1222. 702-727-1222. Now, here again, Art Bell.
Once again, here I am, and I suggest you listen very closely. Colonel Phillip Corso is my guest. He wrote The Day After Roswell, probably one of the hottest books in the country right now. Dr. John Alexander is with us, both of them in Las Vegas. Back now to my